Well, the Toyota Camry has not been the best-selling car in the United States for 8 years. Its title was taken by the Toyota RAV4 back in 2017, and the RAV4 actually just outsold the Ford F-150 last year to become the best-selling vehicle period in the United States. The Camry is still no sales disappointment. They sold over 300,000 of these vehicles last year in the US alone. And with a complete refresh for the 2025 model year, they're hoping to attract even more buyers to the Camry name. So let's take a look at this 2025 Toyota Camry shown here in the fully loaded XSE trim level to see what Toyota has done with its former bestseller. Let's start under the hood, where we're gonna find things are a bit different to the 8th generation Camry. Toyota's calling this the 9th generation Camry, even though it shares a lot of components with the 8th generation, but they did change a lot as well. So there is only one engine option for the 2025 Toyota Camry. The V6 and the non-hybrid 4-cylinders are dead, and we only have this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder hybrid system, which in a front-wheel drive setting like this vehicle makes 225 horsepower, which is about 20 more than you're going to find in Honda Accord Hybrid and about 30 more than you're going to find in Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. And in an all-wheel drive setting, because you can get the Camry in all-wheel drive, it returns 232 horsepower, which are pretty healthy power figures. And I'll talk more about this vehicle's engine while driving the car, but it is really punchy. And in this setup, in this front-wheel drive fully loaded model, it's still going to return 47 mpg combined, which is very impressive. And again, all Camrys are now hybrids, achieving really good fuel economy. And I think that's really smart, because with hybrids, drivers don't have to change their lifestyle. When you are low on gas, you just go to the gas station and you refuel. You don't have to worry about charging. You don't have to worry about plugging it in. All you do is fill the car up with gas. It's just a lot more efficient. So I think that's a really smart transition on Toyota's part. These power outputs and MPG figures are better than a lot of the competition, so I'm very impressed. Moving on to the styling, I quite like it. There's definitely more going on than, say, the Honda Accord, although I think that car might be a bit more mature in terms of its styling. But it is kind of on the side profile of this vehicle that you really do notice the similarities with the 8th generation. While they have changed the grille and they've changed the styling around back and there's new headlights and wheels and fun colors, the general shape of the vehicle is identical to the last Camry, and that's not a bad thing. It's very practical packaging, as we'll talk about in a moment, and I kind of like the more 3-box sedan shape versus a sloping roofline. Looking at the rear styling now, you can see we have these new C-shaped taillights, this kind of black bar connecting either side of the vehicle, which everyone seems to be doing now, with Camry spelled out. Across, we have this black spoiler on the trunk lid, definitely more aesthetic than performance oriented. And as you can see, this is the XSE, and this is the new hybrid badge that Toyota's putting on all of their hybrids. All Toyota Camrys will have this badge because, again, they're all hybrids. This one also has dual exhaust tips, although this one on the left is a dud, just kind of made to make the car look a bit sportier. But I think overall it's a pretty handsome look. Again, I think the Accord is a bit sleeker, a bit more conservative and mature. This is definitely a little flashier, a little more youthful and aggressive, but attractive nonetheless. If we open the trunk, which can be done with a little button right there, we're going to reveal 15.1 cubic feet of space, which is plenty. You can lower the second row seats by pulling on these little tabs right here. You could probably fit a bike if you take the front tire off. Not as practical as something like a Toyota RAV4. That's why people are gravitating more towards them, but still plenty of space and very secure. Again, I'm a sedan guy and I really like a big spacious trunk, and this Camry offers one. Hopping into the back of the Toyota Camry, you're gonna have to count me impressed, because I'm 6'2". This is my ideal driving position. I have plenty of knee room and foot room, and even when I sit all the way upright, even with this panoramic sunroof, I can fit. That is not the case in the Honda Accord. So if you are regularly going to be putting taller passengers in the back of your midsize sedan, Toyota Camry is definitely the better option compared to Honda Accord, because I can't sit all the way upright in the back of Honda Accord because that vehicle has a bit more of a sloping roofline, and that eats into second row headroom. If we lower this center armrest, we're going to find a pair of cup holders. And other than that, it is a bit bare bones back here. We do have air vents and a USB-C and a USB-A charging outlet, but there are no heated seats, no third zone climate control. We get map pockets, no peasant blockers, but we do get to appreciate the panoramic sunroof. But yeah, not quite as many features as I would have hoped, especially on this higher end model. I would have liked to maybe see heated outboard seats or third zone automatic climate control, but that is what you get when you step up to a luxury vehicle. But most of the changes for Toyota Camry in 2025 come up front, where we have a very modern but still very functional cockpit. Other OEMs take note. I gave the Honda Accord and the Lexus ES, which is kind of an aging vehicle now, a lot of praise for how many physical controls there were in those cars, and the Camry is no exception. This is far superior to all of the screens and haptic controls that a lot of OEMs, especially luxury OEMs, are gravitating towards. This is a great and very usable interior. Starts with this gear selector. Put your foot on the brake, you know exactly what to do with this gear selector. PRND, very, very simple. And we have a bunch of physical controls, a bunch of switches to adjust our temperature, a bunch of buttons for our heated and ventilated seats on this particular model. We can adjust our automatic climate control. And yet we still have a lot of technology too. This massive 12.3-inch display does wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. We have a wireless charging pad right here, big cup holders, more storage, and 2 USB-C charging outlets and a USB-A that actually acts as an information port. So if you want to connect your phone wired, you have to use the USB-A port, which I don't have any more USB-A charging cables. I don't know why that one's not USB-C as well, but I think that's a sign of this platform's age in a way, because most fully redesigned cars in 2025 have only USB-C ports. Anyways, there are more buttons to cycle through our drive modes and some of our hybrid settings. A lot of buttons on the steering wheel as well for our cruise control and our infotainment system. And the nice thing about these buttons is they don't change their function. A lot of new vehicles, especially luxury again, what the steering wheel buttons do changes based on what's going on in the display, and it's super complicated. These are very nice, and there's a minimal presence of gloss black buttons as well. They're here, but they're not everywhere. Most of the buttons are matte black, much better than gloss black because gloss black shows a bunch of fingerprints. We have a couple here on the steering wheel, like our volume kind of knob, which I like that it is more of a dial versus a button, and like the button to skip your songs. And your heated and ventilated seat controls are gloss black versus matte black. They have these awesome matte black buttons everywhere else. I wish they had just put those where the gloss black buttons are, but they are not a big offender, so I'm going to give them a pass. We also have a nice physical volume knob and more buttons to the left of the steering wheel. Again, you're going to jump in this car, say you're renting one, you're going to immediately know what to do. Everything is very familiar. No one's going to be confused. Maybe the biggest thing is the electronic parking brake, because those are, some people get confused by those, but the release is right here. They haven't really tucked it away anywhere. Very clear where it is. And what I like about this interior is it's very modern. Again, like I said, 12.3-inch display, 12.3-inch instrument cluster. Like, it feels new in here. It doesn't feel like last generation technology, but it's still also just as functional as older cars were. They've struck a really good balance. And again, I think a lot of other OEMs could take note. All right, driving the 2025 Toyota Camry, flooring it here, and that's 60. It is pretty zippy, this model. Obviously, front wheel drive, again, 225 horsepower, so not quite as powerful as the all-wheel drive model. But even going 55 miles an hour and flooring it uphill, we are still getting a good amount of acceleration. I am very, very impressed. This is noticeably more powerful than the Honda Accord, which I drove only a couple months ago, so I do really remember that. This has a lot more pickup at highway speeds. I did a 100-mile road trip in this vehicle, and it was plenty powerful to pass vehicles, even going like 80 miles an hour. I'm very, very happy with this car. It's not underpowered in the slightest. And compared to the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid, well, that vehicle makes 30 horsepower less, even less than the Honda Accord Hybrid. So I think this is definitely, you're not going to want for power, which is great that it has so much get up and go, while also still returning great efficiency. This has more efficiency than that Honda Accord Hybrid in the Touring fully loaded model, so the comparable trim level to this vehicle. The Honda Accord Touring returns 44 mpg. Again, this Camry XSE in the front wheel drive setting, Accord is only front wheel drive, returns 47 mpg. So this Camry has a lot going for it, and I'm actually really impressed by this powertrain. And the steering also really helps with it. It's a very quick and direct, and the chassis remains relatively flat. Last time I drove a Camry, actually my very first press car was the Toyota Camry. This car kind of has a special place in my heart, but it was a Camry TRD, so with the V6, and I commented, I remember commenting on that vehicle how, one, refined that V6 is, which it really is. I recently drove a Lexus ES350 that had that V6, which is a very refined and smooth engine, but also just how good the chassis is in this vehicle. You know, it rides really good. We're on these really stylish 19-inch rims, but I still think we're getting a really smooth ride in this vehicle, and the car remains pretty flat around corners. You actually can have fun with the Toyota Camry, which is kind of shocking to say. And if I put it, that was all in the normal mode. If I go now into the sport mode where the gauge cluster turns red and floor it, we're gonna get power a little quicker. We're gonna get a little less efficiency, but yeah, this is a pretty zippy car. You really, really don't have to worry about it in this model. I'm impressed. And again, still very comfortable. These seats are very comfortable. We have adjustable lumbar support on the driver's seat, two-way. No adjustable lumbar support on the passenger seat, but it is an automatic seat. Again, heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel as well. I have my CarPlay displayed wirelessly right now, which is a very, very nice. And yeah, overall, this cabin, again, feels very modern and very functional. All right, two other things I want to comment on. One is the turning circle, actually, of the Camry is pretty bad. I have noticed that maneuvering into parking spaces and just turning around is not as easy as I had anticipated on this, you know, kind of smaller mid-size sedan. I've definitely been in some crossovers and vehicles that feel like bigger cars than this recently that have definitely turned easier and had a tighter turning circle. So that's one thing to note. The other is that my personal MPG that I have achieved with this vehicle, I've been averaging about 40 MPG, which is still really good, but not quite the 47 that Toyota has claimed. Now, there are two reasons for this. One, I did that road trip, as I mentioned, which definitely is where hybrids are least efficient on a highway setting. But 40 is still a bit lower than Toyota claims on the highway. The second is that other than the road trip, most of the time I've spent driving this car have been on very short trips, less than 5 miles. And my experience, and from what I've heard from other Toyota Camry owners of this generation Toyota Camry, is that the hybrid system takes about 15 minutes to really fully start kicking in and getting the MPG benefits, the full MPG benefits, because the Camry will automatically turn the engine on more than it's probably needed in the early part of driving this vehicle, just to make sure the engine is warm and to burn off some gas. So like, it turns on the engine more than is needed in the very beginning of the cycle of running the car. So if you're only doing super short journeys that are like less, like 10 to 15 minutes, that's definitely going to give you worse fuel economy than what this car is advertised to get. Just another thing I have noticed. 40.4 MPG is what I'm averaging. Still way better than I typically get on vehicles, especially in LA, where we spend so much time idling, just not going anywhere. This car is still super efficient. But that was one thing I noticed. Last thing, actually, one more thing. This car has really thin A-pillars, which leads to really good forward visibility. The blind spots up front are very minimal, some of the lowest I've seen in vehicles. There's a great view in front of the side view mirrors on either side of the windows, because the windows can go so far forward. I'm very impressed by the frontward visibility of the Toyota Camry. It's something I noticed, and just makes it easier to maneuver around urban settings, or, you know, if there are pedestrians or other things in the road, you can really easily see them. That is definitely a plus of this car. And yeah, giving it some power. It is torquey, this powertrain. I'm very impressed by the overall driving dynamics of this vehicle and what Toyota has been able to do with this platform. And with the Camry, it's a really good product. So that's the 2025 Toyota Camry. It is comfortable, efficient, stylish, and with far better driving dynamics than you would expect from a mid-size sedan. This car has a lot going for it. It just seems like $42,000 is a lot to pay for a mid-size sedan, but that's also comparable to vehicles like the Honda Accord and the Hyundai Sonata. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.